This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London. All of our podcasts are available from our website, www.sas.ac.uk.
Fifth session, Commonwealth Renewal After Perth, a reflection from governments. And as those of us who were lucky enough to be present at Perth, in Perth, wonderful city, Chogam 2011, the ripple of sort of discussion throughout the corridors of the wonderful conference centre was very much indeed which direction is the Commonwealth going to go in terms of its reform and its relevance as we move onward into the 21st century. And so I think having a reflection from governments this afternoon is a very important part of the day's activities and discussions. And we're very fortunate in having two speakers, Her Excellency Alun Dombe Asamba, High Commissioner of Jamaica, and Rachel Cooper, First Secretary of the High Commission of Australia. Her Excellency Alun Dombe Asamba has recently come to the United Kingdom in May 2012 as Jamaica's 12th High Commissioner. She does seem to be an extremely busy lady because she's also non-resident ambassador to 5 countries, namely Ireland, Republic of Finland, and the Kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Rachel Cooper is First Secretary in Australia, and you have in Britain, and you have been to Chogam because you were present in Perth. And since joining the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in 2003, she's also served in Suva, Fiji, and a number of Australian delegations abroad, including to UN climate change negotiations and the Pacific Islands Forum. So I think you'll agree that we have two very well-equipped speakers to speak on the subject of renewal after Perth, a reflection from governments. Your Excellency, Asamba. Thank you. Would you like to speak from the podium?
Yes, I probably
You should.
Thank you.
I hope you all can all hear at the back.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to first of all express my appreciation to the Commonwealth Advisory Bureau for inviting me to speak at this one-day conference, and to say that the organizers have chosen quite a thought-provoking theme for the conference, with a focus on the Commonwealth in crisis, is reform possible, as well as by the attention that the session is giving to the Commonwealth after 2011 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. This discussion is opportune because it provides an important medium for assessing what has been achieved since Perth and where we go in anticipation of 2013 Chogam. I want to stress that it is always useful for intergovernmental organizations, such as the Commonwealth, to be engaged in this kind of reflection for the purpose of renewal and reform. And to remind you that this period of renewal in which the Commonwealth is engaged is not new. The Commonwealth has gone through periods of self-examination prior to this. The utility of this kind of discourse is important because it allows us to think of where we are with the reform agenda, where we need to be, and what we need to do to get there. I would like to highlight that a lot has been accomplished over the past year. The Perth Chogam addressed a number of key issues emanating from the report of the Eminent Persons Group, the EPG, and the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group, CMAG, regarding the strengthening of the organization and the group, respectively. The fact that agreement has been reached on many of the various recommendations, including for the adoption of a charter, is noteworthy. I want to note that the range of issues covered at Perth and the nature of the recommendations adopted are significant. It was important that Perth focused on how we build national and global resilience. To that end, it provided a holistic framework to realize the objective by, inter alia, its focus on trade, HIV/AIDS, women's empowerment, gender equality, youth, climate change, national disasters, democracy, food security, international peace and security, and the reform of the Secretariat. These are all issues that Jamaica believes are important and within the remit of the Commonwealth to consider, given the many varied challenges that face us as a global community. Jamaica is especially pleased with the continued focus on the needs and concerns of small island developing states. The Commonwealth has a history of support in this particular area, and Perth reaffirmed its commitment. Of the 54 member states in the Commonwealth, 24 are small island developing states. I want to reinforce the point, therefore, that the Commonwealth brings something to the table through the opportunities for strengthened strategic partnerships. And this was brought to the fore in Perth with the decision to further engage international organizations and groups such as the G20 as well as civil society organizations. And to reiterate that Jamaica continues to endorse the core values and principles of the Commonwealth and remains committed to efforts to strengthen the work of CMAT and to make it more effective and efficient in order to better meet the needs of its members. So, where do we need to be? We need to be able to build on the platform provided by Perth to give political realization to many of the issues discussed. This will require continued dialogue among member countries and dedicated resources. Greater account has to be taken of the real development impact of the work of the organization at the national level. That is why the ongoing deliberations on the 2013-2016 strategic plan are so critical. It must ensure that there is sustained progress through the technical assistance offered to member countries. To this end, it is especially disconcerting that there are proposals to dilute the organization's work in the fields of education and health. This is particularly of concern as in the outcome documents for Perth, page 10, sections F and G specifically speaks to the head's views about promoting inclusive education to accelerate efforts to achieve quality universal primary education, and a commitment to universal access to health care and services to improve maternal and reproductive health, supporting access to safe, affordable, and quality medicines inter alia. We feel that we cannot make such changes in the work of the Secretariat that will put health and education on the back burner or foist it off to other organizations who we feel are doing some of that work. Because in fact, there are other organizations that are doing all of the work that the Commonwealth Secretariat is currently doing. So how do we get where we want to go? I'd like to underscore that reform and renewal takes time. If it is to be effective, there must be buy-in on the part of all the stakeholders, the Commonwealth staff, member countries, and the Commonwealth affiliated organizations alike. This is central to the Commonwealth remaining relevant to its constituents. I want to reaffirm the importance of consensus building in taking the process forward. The Commonwealth, with its diverse membership, has a tradition of working on the premise of mutual respect and understanding. Where there are issues that are proving extremely divisive, these should be abandoned in favor of a more balanced approach that takes account of the views of other countries. Sufficient care must be taken to ensure a transparent consultation process wherein member governments know that all ideas will be allowed to contend on the road to achieving consensus. To do otherwise is to make a lie of the assertion that the Commonwealth is an organization in which all states have an equal voice. I want to point out here the need to ensure that all reform proposals are treated equally. None is to be considered more important than the other. Otherwise, we run the risk of jeopardizing the entire process. We need to have a holistic approach. This must be taken not only to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, all of which are central to any country's development, but to broader socio-economic concerns. All the issues pertaining to one's overall development should be perceived and preserved as the hallmark of the Commonwealth. In closing, I want to express my appreciation to the Commonwealth Advisory Board for hosting this event, and to say that the presentations that have been made provide much food for thought. And I'd like to encourage all of you in attendance to continue the reflection and dialogue regarding the reform of the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency. I think you've laid the ground well for our discussion this afternoon, where we go and what we need to do in order to get where we want to get to, and that something has been achieved, but we've got to build on it, and that will take time. And now it's with pleasure that I ask Rachel Cooper to give us her thoughts.
Sure, I'll remain at the table for a moment. I'd like to say thank you very much for having me along this afternoon to speak. It's a pleasure to be here, particularly as Chair and Nurse of the Commonwealth. This is a very timely discussion at this juncture as Member States formalise their decisions on all the EPG recommendations and look at how they take forward those decisions through implementation through the strategic plan. We are enormously grateful to all of the members of the EPG for all of the work that they put into their recommendations in helping to guide member states in shaping a Commonwealth that is reinvigorated and is fit for purpose for the future. Australia has made very clear from the beginning its support for all of the EPG recommendations and for Commonwealth reform generally. As Chair in Office, we are working for a stronger, a more active and a more relevant Commonwealth. We have worked in a very concerted effort over the last 12 months to lead a process of robust consideration and decisions on all the outstanding EPG recommendations. A significant amount of work has gone into this, both through the senior officials meeting that was chaired by the Deputy Secretary of my organisation, DFAT, Gillian Bird, and through the ministerial task force process, which was chaired by my Foreign Minister, Senator Carr. We're very pleased that at the end of this process that there's been decisions made on all of the EPG recommendations, and we're especially pleased that Foreign Ministers decided on a text of the new Commonwealth Charter. As you'll all be aware, those decisions have been referred to leaders through a no objections process, which is still ongoing and due to finish on the 30th of November, and we certainly look forward expectantly to there being endorsement of the decision by foreign ministers in New York. Leaders, I think, showed great foresight in setting the official and ministerial processes which they did in 2012, which have been successful in achieving results. A significant number of the EPG recommendations have been adopted in some form based on the decisions of foreign ministers. I think we should not underestimate how significant what it is that we've achieved to date. It is difficult at the best of times to achieve consensus in an organisation of 54 member states, but on an issue of reforms, when members hold very strong views about the priorities and future direction that should be taken by the organisation, there have been many issues to discuss and to debate and to work through, and they haven't always been easy. Australia does take a pragmatic view generally, we're known for it, but we never give up simply because something is too hard to obtain. And this is why we've kept working over the past 12 months to maximise the results from deliberations on the EPG recommendations. I will make a point on the Commission's proposal. It is disappointing to Australia that it was not possible to achieve consensus on an additional mechanism of some sort, be it a commissioner or otherwise, to support Commonwealth values. While there was good support from a group of states for a new mechanism, it was clear that other states were not prepared to move on the issue. Nonetheless, it's very positive that there was extensive consideration given by CMAG ministers to what CMAG's expanded role now means and how CMAG should be best supported in that role by ComSec and the Secretary-General, including through existing mechanisms such as the Secretary-General's Good Officers mechanism. And this consideration will be ongoing by CMAG ministers. It is very clear to us that the Secretariat needs to play an enhanced role in supporting CMAG to enable it to fulfil its new mandate, to respond proactively and in a timely manner to situations of concern. The bottom line is that it is critical that CMAG has ready and direct access to the best and most up-to-date information on a situation of concern and are able to make requests and seek advice from ComSec and any person appointed by the Secretary-General to work in relation to a situation of concern. So CMAG ministers need quick, accurate, up-to-date advice from the ground in order to respond and be proactive. Overall, we believe the decisions that have been made by ministers on the EPG recommendations provide a very firm basis for reform that is widely recognised to be needed. But obviously much still depends on implementation, and I'm sure that that's something that you've talked about extensively today. This is why the development of ComSec's new strategic plan is so critical to both shaping the priorities of the organisation in accordance with the direction of leaders, but also to reforming ComSec so that it is able to most effectively deliver. We are very grateful for the efforts that we know are being made by ComSec staff to develop the new strategic plan. It is a big task. Staff like Nabil and Steve have been working very hard on it. We appreciate that there are a wide range of views amongst member governments on the strategic plan, and the Board of Governors has a significant job ahead of it. but we are very committed to working to ensure that full effect is given to all of Ministers' decisions on the future of the organisation. For a long time now, ComSec has been asked to work on too many issues and has been, frankly, spread too thinly. And this is the fault of Member States. It's their own fault. We've overloaded the Secretariat over time with tasks, and we recognise that it's Member States who must be the ones to take decisions to reprioritise and refocus work. We believe the Commonwealth must focus on the areas where it really adds value and refocuses work in ways in which it can add real value. The Commonwealth Secretariat is a comparatively small international organisation. It's often quoted that its staff members are less than the number of staff members that staff the UN canteen in New York. It's a useful statistic to keep things in perspective. And the bottom line is that they can't do everything. We believe it's better that they do fewer things well than doing too much poorly, because the latter will only lead the organisation to irrelevancy. We are fully cognisant of the need for reform in the Commonwealth. We threw our full weight behind this at Cheltenham in Perth, and we have done so in the 12 months which have followed. We will continue our efforts as Chair in Office going forward in the critical implementation phase and as we develop the strategic plan. We know that this is not the first time that reform in the Commonwealth has been considered, nor do we think it will be the last. The Commonwealth will need to be responsive and adaptable to changes in the international landscape. But as the EPG clearly stated, the need for reform is urgent now. We want to seek a relevant and thriving Commonwealth of the future, and that is what we're striving to do as Chair in Office.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Richard. It's interesting to hear your firm projection that we are on the right course, but yet still much needs to be done, and I think the word implementation is an important one to keep in the forefront of our discussions, because that is how we move forward, is only with implementation. Right, I see a lot of show of hands. Thank you. I'm going to take this Daisy first. Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you. A question to High Commissioner. Until 3 months ago, there was a Deputy Secretary General from Jamaica at the Secretariat, but when he came to the end of his term in office, his post has remained empty and is empty today. There's nobody in top management at the Secretariat, either from the Caribbean or from a small state. And to my knowledge, only one of the 12 directors is from a small state, namely Seychelles. Is there any concern amongst the 15 Caribbean High Commissioners, or from the 32 small state governments more broadly, that as the Secretariat is developing a new strategic plan where it intends to narrow its work programme, is there any concern that there isn't anybody at the highest level at the Secretariat that is there to fight that particular corner?
There is concern. The Secretariat is currently looking at a strategic plan. The important thing in terms of aligning a structure with the implementation of a plan depends upon the policy direction that will be taken. And I think that it is fair to say that while we see the strategic plan, we haven't got all of the plan so far. This morning we had a discussion, a presentation to the board on a direction. Until a decision is taken as to the direction and the programs that are going to be supported by the Secretariat, then we have to wait to see what that is going to be to align the staffing in relation to the programs that have to be considered. Now, the challenge that we find is that, yes, that position remains open as of now, but we have to see what this new structure of the Secretariat is going to be to determine whether or not we will be able to have a position filled from the smaller states. Now, the direction that it seems to be going in has placed, although there are 5 major areas presented for focus, 2 areas, it was discussed this morning that 2 of those areas could be put together as one. The area relating to politics and democracy, which would cover human rights and those issues. The development area has been reduced, and even if you add the focus on development with the focus on small states, and this morning in the discussion, a presentation was made that says do not begin to add up because it doesn't mean anything. But when you add the first 2, the last of the 5 relates to the focus on youth, and the outcomes presented that were expected was only 2. Whereas for the first 2, when you add them together as one, it's 10. And for the second, outcomes I'm talking about now. And for the second one, which would be development and the interest of small states, small island states, it's 7. Education and health were tacked on, it seems to me, as an afterthought in the area of development. And that is a concern to us. So I'm trying to link that with the staffing that would be required. Now, it probably is reasonable to say that those of us from small island developing states, or from developing countries, which would be the majority of the countries in the Commonwealth, would have an interest in seeing that somebody who knows our issues and who is able to reflect our concerns would be on the staff. But as of now, we don't know what the structure is going to be, and we don't know how such a person would be fitted into the staff.
Thank you. It's a very comprehensive answer to the question. Lady,
I'm Rosemary Preston from the Council for Education in the Commonwealth. I think this has been a splendid day, and thank you to Alun Lundabet Asamba for her contribution and her welcome comments on the future of education. The educational constituency is the largest in the Commonwealth and has been for many years. In many people's eyes, the first thing that comes to their head has been, down the decades, an organisation that has facilitated, supported, collaborated with education. The proposals with the unique comparative advantage. The proposals to diminish the Secretariat's contribution to education therefore pose immense problems to those in the constituency. At the same time, we don't need to be told that in this age of measuring outcomes and impacts, how many decades it takes to measure the impact of particular educational interventions, particularly for small children. So there's a bit of a conundrum in there that doesn't work. We're also told that there will be alternative sources of support at intergovernmental levels. But the constituency in the Commonwealth is rather doubtful of this in the present time, and particularly not one that will make the contributions to supporting education in small states that is possible under the banner of the Commonwealth. Most importantly, I think that colleagues should be reminded that, I think not just with education but with health, the Secretariat plays a pivotal role in the interrelationships between the intergovernmentals, governments of member states, and then all of the non-state sector that is realising a huge amount of the dynamism and real work that goes into what the Commonwealth calls its own input. And without that pivotal relationship in multiple directions, it becomes very difficult, and across sectors, not just the education sector, very difficult to see how those inputs will be sustained. And the final point is, since this is about saving money, we believe that there is potentially great confusion between the remit to support different activities, education, health, and so forth, and a perception of limitations of the management as currently conducted within the Secretariat. For us, this seems to be just a man throwing out a baby when it's the bath that needs cleaning.
So we do have a few government representatives in the audience. Is there any member of any embassy or high commission who would like to make a comment? No? Okay, thank you. Then I'll suggest
just 2 questions.
I hope they're different from your last one.
Yeah, they're different. People are hitting the point. Are you, Rachel Cooper, a white supremacist racist? Are you, Victoria Schofield, a white supremacist racist?
Thank you very much for those questions. They actually don't bear relevance to the subject, which is Commonwealth renewal after Perth.
Of course they do. If you're racist, we need that situation.
So I think I'm going to decline as the chair to answer that question.
Are you racist?
I think Rachel would also like to decline. Do we have any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Brewer from the Commonwealth States Inventors Association. This morning, I'm sorry you weren't around this morning, but on a number of occasions, the issue, and part of this afternoon on a number of occasions, the role of Commonwealth associations and Commonwealth civil society organisations was discussed in trying to take forward the report and to renew the Commonwealth. I may not be as positive as yourself as far as where the renewal that we have already got there, but I would like to ask what role do you see Commonwealth associations having at both the Commonwealth Secretariat level and within countries to assist in progressing the Commonwealth reforms?
Okay. Would you like to take that question? We'll be fairly brief with our answers because we are at the end of our session now.
I take it from the discussions that have been held so far and the comments that have been held so far that there is going to be an increased role by the Commonwealth organization in partnership with the Secretariat to deliver the services that are appropriate in the Commonwealth. But not having seen the structure, the proposed structure of the organization, I'm not sure if I can answer whether there is going to be, on the part of the staff, the support mechanism to the organizations. So I don't know any other way to answer that question, except to say that we expect there is going to be for an increased role of the organizations, whether or not and how that partnership is going to be coordinated. I can't tell you at this point.
Rachel, could you make a brief comment on this, please?
Okay, yes, absolutely. I'd just like to say that we strongly support an enhanced role by civil society at both levels that you're talking about. This is something that was recognised by the EPG. We see the network of Commonwealth organisations as one of the Commonwealth's greatest strengths, and it is a central part of what makes the Commonwealth so valuable. And Obviously, there is going to be a lot of discussion on the strategic plan as to the nitty-gritty of what that engagement will be, but we strongly
Thank you very much. Well, we've had a brief but I think fruitful discussion. More needs to be done, but we are on the right track with some concerns about the way forward. I'd like to thank Her Excellency Asamba and thank you very much indeed for participating in this panel.